Hi everybody, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm experiencing technical difficulties as usual, trying to get going here. So hopefully you can hear me. Let me check my microphone to make sure it's not too loud. So everybody make sure you type something so that I know you can hear me. Just a second here, let me get into this. Oh, are you hearing me okay? You can hear me, awesome. I went to get into the screen share and it was gone. So I have no idea where they put it. They've changed something else on Facebook, so I'm working on checking the sound. Is it okay tonight? Hopefully the air conditioner is not too annoying. It gets very hot out here. Oh, all kinds of people coming in though. That's good. Thanks for helping me out with letting me know if you can hear me and stuff. Because the what's weird with Facebook is every week I go in and something's different. So it makes it hard because I never know what I'm going to run into. And is the air conditioner loud? Can you hear me okay and not just the air conditioner? I have to have it running. It's so hot out here. How is everybody tonight? Yeah, you'll just be able to see the pillow on the screen and you'll hear me. But you won't be able to see my face because I have to share the screen. So yeah, so there's a new producer thing on Facebook, and I've been using it, and I know I've used it before for the screen share, but tonight when I went in to find the screen share button, I have no idea where they put it. I'll have to go find it again. I couldn't find it tonight. It was gone. So yeah, so we're gonna make this cute little pillow. I've been wanting to do this for a while. These pillows are really cute, and they make such nice little gifts for kids and grandkids and all that. And then it's personalized, and then it would be something that they could have at home, because now everybody's so worried about names on things and everything. I thought this would be cute that they have a pillow they could have on their bed with their name on it, so that it's at home and it's safe and everything. What we're going to do is we're going to use a True Type font to make this, and I love this True Type font because it is not like even, it's kind of like childlike, and it's whimsical, and it's not like even, like not all the bottoms aren't the same, so it makes it look, all the names look so cool with it. So anyway, I have given you this font. It was a free one that I found, I think on defont.com or someplace, and it's called Boys on Mopeds, and it's in the Dropbox. So there's a post that I had a link to the Dropbox where you can get this font, and then because it's just fun to do. This is a good one to do because it just, it's interesting. It's an interesting font. And okay, so all of a sudden all of the typing has stopped. So is everybody still there? Nothing is moving now, so I'm hoping everything's okay. Is everybody still hearing me? Start sending some like little thumbs ups or something so I know you're still hearing me. Everything kind of suddenly just stopped. So I hope. All of a sudden I had all these, cool things going on, and then everything just stopped. Yes. Okay. Everything's fine. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, in the Dropbox on Sessions on Software, there's a folder called Name Pillow, and that Name Pillow has this font in it, and also the instructions on how to make the pillow. Okay, so depending on what your So I didn't give you like any PES files or anything because, you know, you wouldn't want to sew out my name. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to show you how to make the applique from the TrueType font, which is actually comes in as artwork. And then we're also going to learn to make a cut file for our scan and cuts, or for like a Sizzix, or like a silhouette cameo. Okay. Okay, you keep having an interruption of the live video. I think that might be you, Betty, because no one else has said there's an interruption, and there's nothing on my end because I'm actually logged in as a participant also, so I haven't had that, so it might just be you. Okay, so we're going to learn to make an FCM or an SVG file depending on what kind of cutting machine you have, because when I cut out these letters in my name, I cut those out with the cutting machine, so that you didn't have to it's so much easier, than you don't have to trim it in the hoop, especially when you're doing a lot of little words. So I wanted to show you how to make an SVG file from your design file that you're using. So that way we're going to do that. And then I'm also going to quickly show you how to install the font, because a lot of you may not know how to install a font, and that's a Windows thing. So I'll just show you that quickly, how to do that before we get started. Okay, so that font you just download it to your computer, and I'm going to close my picture here, and let's talk about the font for a minute. I'll show you how to install it. So here's that font, that Boys on Mopeds font. Now it's already on my computer, but I'll just show you how to do it. All right, it's very easy. So I'm just going to right click on that font. It's going to download your computer, and I'm just going to copy it. Second here, I moved, and there we go. I'm just going to copy that font. All right, then I'm going to close this folder up, and I need to go to my control panel. That's where the font folder is on the control panel. So I'm going to go to the start menu down here and into settings. And then in settings, I'm going to, it says find a setting. There's like a little search box at the top, and I'm going to type in control panel, because the control panel is still there, by the way, in Windows 10. They kind of hide it now. So I just type in control panel in my settings page, and then here's control panel. So I'm just going to click on that. And I'm in the control panel. This is like Windows 7. It looks just like Windows 7. They just kind of hide it. And here is my font folder. Right here. It says fonts. Okay? You don't have to open it if you don't want to. But you can. If you can also just click on it and it'll open it. And here's all the fonts that are in my computer. There's a whole bunch of them. Okay? Lots of times when I install one, I don't open the folder. I just then find my font folder. I right click on the font folder, and I click paste. So I copied I right clicked and copied the font that I downloaded, and then I'm going to click paste. And mine's going to come up and say that it's already installed. Do you want to replace it? So in your case, it probably won't do this because mine's already installed. I'm just going to tell it no, because I'm not actually going to install it. So then there's a little box that says installing, and it installs the font. That's all there is to it. So copy the font that you downloaded from the Dropbox on Sessions on Software. And then the other one is a PDF file. It's the instructions to make the pillow. So you know how to make the actual pillow and the backing and all that. And then go to settings. And in the little search thing, find a setting, type in control panel. Okay. And that'll bring up the old Windows 7 control panel. Whoops. There we go. And then when you find the font folder, it just says fonts, right click and paste. and then it will install that font on your computer. Okay, so when we use TrueType fonts, they generally, it depends on the fonts that are on your computer, which fonts you have. So that's why I like this font for these names real well, and I wanted to give that font to you so you could have that one as well. You may not have had that on your computer. That's something I found, I've had it for a long, long time. So that's how you install it. Any font you find, like if you go to dafont.com and download a font, that's how you would install it on your computer. You might have to unzip it first. Sometimes they come down zipped. This was already unzipped, so you shouldn't have to unzip it. You might have to unzip it if you download the folder, because it has the two items in it, the font and the PDF file for the instructions. And then you might have to unzip that. But you don't want it to be zipped when you're trying to install it. It has to be extracted or unzipped. Okay? So that's how you do the font. So we got the font in there. And then we're going to create our name design. So I'm going to open up Toolshed, Perfect Embroidery Pro. So mine opens up in Perfect Embroidery Pro. This is still this is still kind of a gray area for people. So the parent icon on your screen now says Embroidery Toolshed. Okay? That encompasses all the Dime software that you own. So now when you update or you open, you can get access all the programs under one icon on your computer instead of having 10 of them. Because I had all the software and I had all these icons all over my screen. So it's kind of nice. It is a little confusing to people yet. Okay? So when the software opens up, it's of course going to have the little today screen, and I'm not sure if the Mac version yet. I know I have a couple Mac users on here. I'm not sure if the Mac version has this today screen yet. That's something I don't know because I don't have a Mac. But I want to create a new design when this opens up on my machine, on my computer. Okay, so I just created a new design. If this comes up gray, like all your buttons in this main screen here, if this all comes up gray, then that means that your software's not awake, and you have to click the little new page up here. Okay, so that's how you get everything woke up and all your icons going. All right. It does not. Okay, thank you very much, Becky. I just don't. I've never seen it on the Mac. I don't have a Mac, so it's an expensive computer to buy just to see if it does. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so and so when you open your software, Becky, make sure that you click the new button up on the top left-hand corner to get everything ready to be used. So that's probably yours. Probably is all very grayed out when it opens up. So, okay, and it also does that if you're not on the internet. So since I'm on the internet, obviously everything opens up like that. Okay. So we have our screen open. I'm going to leave it small like this so that little screen sharing doodah at the bottom of my screen, I have to do that because of Facebook. So you can see everything. I'll just leave my screen a little small. And we created a new design. We've got it ready to go. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to right click up here on my ruler bar and check my settings. I want to make sure that I am in inches. And I'm going to check my grid settings. I might need some help with the grid. And so I often do this. I'm going to click on grid. I'm already in inches. I'm going to click grid settings now. And I want my settings for my grid to be 1 inch square. So I can do the horizontal. It's already there, but I'll just do it 1, and I want the vertical to be 1. And then I'm going to click OK. So that way I have 1 inch grid on my screen. All right. So sometimes that's nice when we're trying to do things and get things lined up and center things. Okay. So now we're going to create a background outline for our pillow. And I'm just going to use my artwork tool. I just need kind of a representation of my pillow so I know where I'm going here with my size and everything. So I am going to create my pillow background outline artwork by choosing my artwork tool. And I'm going to choose the rectangle. And then I'm just going to come down here on my workspace and I'm going to hold my mouse button down and just drag from the top left to the bottom right. And it doesn't matter what size it is, I'm going to fix that in a little bit. I'm going to transform that to, I'm going to transform that to 8 by 12. So to do that, I'm going to go back up and get my select tool. And then I'm going to go to transform. And I'm going to choose the width of 12 inches and the height of 8. And this is just going to be kind of a basic guideline for us. And then I'm going to click apply. Whoops. Second here, I need to read, I'm sorry, I forgot to deselect maintain aspect ratio because it was an odd size. So if I deselect that, now I can go back and make my width 12. Okay, so I'm going to click apply. And suddenly everything's gone. Oh no, what happened? So when that happens, you go up to the zoom up here and to fit. So that way we can see the outline that we just drew. I also want to make sure that this outline that I just drew, this rectangle, is perfectly centered on my workspace. It helps me just know where I'm at. So to do that, you go back up to your ruler bar, you right click on it again, and then there's a center origin at the bottom of that little list. And that centers my rectangle perfectly on my workspace so that I just have I know where I'm working and how far away I am for things, okay? Okay. So, we're going to be working with a TrueType font. There are two ways to work with TrueType fonts. This software now, it didn't used to, but it does now, has kind of a way that it will digitize TrueType fonts on the fly. So if I were to just use TrueType fonts, but I wanted to type out like regular keyboard letters and have them be digitized already, I would choose my text tool. Go down here, and then if you look over here on the right, see where it says TT? If I click that, that brings up all of the TrueType fonts that are on my computer, and then this basically digitizes them on the fly. So when you click OK with what you're doing, then that is then in stitches. Okay, that's one way you can use TrueType fonts in the software. That is not the way I want to do these TrueType fonts. I want to use artwork. So they used to always come into the software as artwork. So I'm just going to take that off my screen. And to get those TrueType fonts in as a piece of artwork that I can change into whatever I want, I need to go up to File and Import Artwork. Or I'm sorry, Import TrueType Text. I have to get the right one. Import TrueType Text. So I'll do that again. File, Import TT Text. So in other words, I'm bringing in TrueType fonts as an artwork piece. So I'm going to click on that. And then the text, it says my text, whatever text you want. I would like it to say my name. So I'm going to type I'm just going to use my name tonight, Janice. Okay. And then the font, so see under font, right now it's showing Arial, which is one of the fonts on my computer. I'm going to click the little button with the 3 polka dots on it. And this will bring up all the fonts in my font folder. So I'm looking for that Boys on Mopeds. And they are in alphabetical order. So here's Boys on Mopeds. Okay. Now if you have just installed the font that we did a little bit ago, and you had your digitizing software open, you need to close your software and open it back up again because it may not show up until you do that. Okay, so mine had already been installed, so mine's there. So there's Boys on Mopeds. I'm gonna click on that. I'm going to use the default size. It's actually a really big size over here. It says the size over here. The font style, I'm going to use black, or in other words, it's bold. And the black oblique would be kind of like if you wanted it to be kind of like tipped to the side. I don't want to use the oblique. I'm going to just use black. Okay. I'm going to click. Second here, I got to pull this up so I can see it. Okay, at the bottom. And like I said before, TrueType fonts will vary on your computer depending on what you have installed. So depending on what programs you have, there's a lot of fonts. You know, I have other programs, so I have tons of fonts on my machine. Jackie, you can pick any one you want. Just whatever's on your computer, just pick one, and it's going to be basically the same. But then you can install the other one if you like that font. You can choose any of them that are on your computer. So depending on what you have installed, you'll have different fonts. Then if you want to get free fonts, there's tons of really great free fonts on Dafont, DAFONT.com. So that's a place I go to get a lot of fonts, and I'm sure that's where I got this one. Okay. So I'm happy with my text. I've got my text Janice. I've got my font Boys on Mopeds. Okay. And I'm going to click OK. And there's my word. So my word is there. And what's cool about these words is that they, you know, they're not all level at the bottom. They kind of are all kind of tippy and kind of cool. So you don't really have to do a lot to make it look neat. Okay, and that's why I like this font. All right, so I think I'm happy with my font. Oh, Janet said I spelled Janet wrong. Sorry, Janet, I'm a Janice. So sometimes sometimes we're both known as Jan, though, right? But my name's longer as Janice, so that's why I wanted to use a longer name. Okay, so I'm going to transform my name. You can see it's pretty small right now. And I want to make it a little bit longer. And I'm going to go up to my transform tab again with it. But she spelled Janice correctly. That's right, Jan, you're a Janice also, aren't you? So see, I could have given you my pillow and you could have sewn it out. Because we have the same name. Yes, I did spell Janice correctly. I have the old-fashioned Janice, not the Janice like Janis Joplin with the S on the end. So. Okay. So we're going to transform the name to make it longer. I need it to be longer. And I've got it selected with my selection tool, and I'm going to go up here to transform. And I want to make it, and at this point, you know, before we had a deselect maintain aspect ratio. Now I'm going to select it again because I want this all to stay. I want it to stay in aspect to what it is. Okay. So I want it to be, I know that when I made my pillow, I want it to be 9 3/4 inches long. So wide. Okay. So I'm going to do the width at 9.75 because that's what fit nicely on the pillow. And I'm going to click apply. And it made it about 3 inches tall, which may not be quite tall enough, but we'll play around with that too. Okay. Now you can see it's kind of like hanging out on the side over here. So let's do the same thing with this. Let's go up to the ruler bar, right click and center origin, and then it will put that in the center of our workspace. Okay. Second here, I got to turn my page. Now, I want this to be a different color just for my sanity, so when we get ready to do the next step, I don't have to change the color. So you can see over here in my sequence view on the right that both of those items are the same color. So let's go ahead and just make the name color number 2. And to do that, doesn't matter what color it is. We're just going to go to color number 2 and right click on that box, And now if you look in my sequence view, there are two colors. Okay, so here's the square or the rectangle we made, and here is the name. Okay. All right, I would like the letters taller without changing the length. And when I looked at this, I thought, I'd really need the letters to be taller. So I decided that I was going to skew them a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect maintain aspect ratio again and transform. And I'm going to make my letters about 5 inches tall. So I'm just going to type 5 in the height now and click apply. So it kind of skewed them a little bit. And we'll play with this just a little bit more. Okay. And the height is now 5 inches. So that's going to fill the front of my pillow pretty well. Let me go get my pillow picture so you can see it again. So it's going to fill that area of the center of my pillow pretty well. And it's going to leave a little spot on the top and the bottom, but remember the pillow's not, flat, so it's going to round in the front a little bit. So I thought 5 inches would be good. Okay, so I'll put this down and we'll go back to the software. But I also was looking at these letters, and I noticed that my letters were a little close here and there, and they didn't all, they were touching. And so when I go to do like my satin stitches and stuff, they're a little bit close in some cases. So what we need to do is we need to go in and we need to move these apart a little bit. Now, if you notice, I could click on each one of these letters as a separate piece of artwork. And if you look over here, if you're looking over here in my sequence view, so they're all different individual pieces of artwork. So let's move these around just a little bit so that they are not quite so close together, especially like here, these are pretty close together, the E and the C, and maybe the J needs to come over a little bit, so we'll just do a little playing around. And what I like to do is I'm going to choose my J first, and I'm going to hold my control key down on my keyboard, and I'm just going to bump this over with my arrow key a little bit. Now I know some of you gals with the Macs, how did you say, can you type to me how you said you did that? I don't know, I don't speak Mac, so if you can tell me how, I know that works on your computer as well, but it's a different key you have to touch. Okay, so I kind of did those, and then let's go over here. I think the I looks good. I think the C's okay, but let's take this E and move it over. Because it's kind of close to the C, and I don't want any of the satin stitches to be covered, be too close together. And that actually looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with that. So yeah, so you gals that know the Mac, if there's a key I know you press, and then you can use like arrow keys to bump, what I call bump letters and stuff around. So that would really be helpful to me if you could type that. And so here I'm pretty happy with these now. These look pretty good. And they're spaced better. But now I may find that it's not exactly the length that I wanted again. So it might be a little bit further apart. Oh, command arrow. Yeah, thank you, Becky. I think that is correct. There's a command key on the Macs. They have a different key, and I just don't know it well enough. Okay. All right, so I'm going to select the whole word Janice again. And since I have it spaced the way I want it, I'm going to go back and check my transform. And now it's like 10 inches long, so it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave that maintain aspect ratio off, and I'm going to make sure that it is still 9.75. And make it a little shorter, but see, then they're spaced a little bit better, okay? While it's selected, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go right click and center origin so that it's exactly in the center of my workspace. Okay, so I have to make sure I didn't miss a step. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good, but I'm looking at some of my letters, and I will tell you with TrueType fonts, It's shift. Okay, shift control arrow. Okay, thank you, Becky. Shift control arrow. Okay. Because I use the control and arrow, and then, but you have to have an extra key down. Okay. Yeah, your keyboard shortcuts are different than Windows. So, okay, so clean up artwork lines. When I bring in artwork very often, like TrueType fonts, sometimes the lines are not quite as smooth as I would like to see them. Okay, so I have to do a little cleanup, and that's very normal with these. Okay, so I'm looking at the letter E. There's a little funny spot on the letter N. So we're going to do a little bit of cleaning. So let me get my zoom tool, and we're going to zoom into this area on the letter N. There's kind of a funny spot there. Can you see this little spot that's sort of like bulging out? I thought, well, that would look nicer if it was a little more smooth. So I've got it zoomed in a little bit more. Let's do one more zoom so you can see it. And then there's a key, or there's a tool that we can use that's called shape. And the shape tool is the second one down on the left. And when we go in and select the N, it gives us all of the little nodes that are making up that letter. And now I can go in and I can move those nodes around so that they're more shapely, they're smoother. Now this one looks very wonky. So I'm going to play around. I'm going to pull it. Ooh, that is really wonky. So what I'm going to do with that one is I think I'm just going to, I might actually pull the little handles on either side and see if that will square it off. And if it doesn't, we'll just delete that one. It's kind of wonky. I don't know. I think I'm going to delete that. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard and hit enter. And see how that just really smoothed that off? Because it was, it was just kind of a funky little node. And that is really normal with TrueType fonts. You will need to go in and maybe do some, changing, moving around. Like I'm looking at some of these other ones on the end. The end actually looked pretty good. It was just that one that was kind of sticking out. So just move them around. Hit enter on your keyboard to make it change. That looks pretty good. Okay, so let me go over, and I know there was one on the E. There was a really funky spot on the E. So you probably can see it as I'm coming up here. So I'm going to click on that. I've still got my shape tool. So see, I've got two nodes here. And so they're, it's just funky. So I'm actually going to select both of those. And I think I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard and enter. And then I've got this nice smooth area here. Might move this node down a little bit. Still got one that's kind of sticking out here, so we'll move that over a little bit. Okay, so you can kind of just clean up. This I always have to do this with TrueType fonts. It's very rare that I don't. Some of them are better than others, when it comes to how they look when they come in. And these are free fonts, so they may or may not look good when they come in, but I do a lot of cleanup when I'm working with these. Okay, so it looks better. So I'm just kind of going around looking at my letters. It looks better. We'll bring it down. So when you're really big like this, it's hard to tell, This looked a little funny at the bottom here. It's got this kind of weird little jog in it here. So let's see if I can move that around a little bit. So there's little handles on either side of the node sometimes that I can use. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The rest of it looked pretty good. It was just there's a couple of really weird spots though. There's kind of a funky spot up here, so let's see if we can get this one to smooth off. Sometimes I need it to smooth, and the best way to get it smooth is to select the node, right click, and then where it says smooth, just click smooth. And it'll take those jogs out of there. That looks much better. There. That looks much better. And the smooth is great. Just right click and smooth. Select the node that you're trying to fix and then right click and smooth. But yeah, the rest of it looks pretty good. There's a couple little weird spots here. Just delete that node. Sometimes just taking a couple of nodes out helps. So I just take a couple out, and that really helps smooth it out. Delete on your keyboard, or you can right click and delete on the node, whichever you want. It looks better. So I'm going to go back up here to zoom to fit. I think that looks better. So it's smoother. It's much more pleasant looking. Okay. And like I said, that's going to be something that you're going to have to do when you use TrueType fonts, and often other artwork also. Like if I bring in artwork, some other artwork pieces, even SVG files, sometimes I have to fix them. And the next class in September, we're going to do the same type of thing by bringing in an SVG file. So like SVG files are those cutting files that you can buy. So let's say you have this really cool cutting file and you just really want to make it into an embroidery design. That's what we're going to do next time. Is I'm going to use an SVG file, and I'll just find a free one that's fun, and then we'll bring in that to the software and we'll make an embroidery design out of it. So I don't know if it'll be an applique or if it'll be just a standard design, so I haven't decided yet. But that's something that I know often I need to do. Okay, so I think I'm happy with my letters. They look good. They're spaced better. They're much more pleasant looking, and there's no weird spots. So I would like my name to be one piece. So I'm going to pull this up so you can see my. So right now, in my sequence view here, you can see here's the name and it's the second color, and here's all these little pieces of artwork. So each letter is a separate piece of artwork. Okay. Well, I would like it to be one piece of artwork, so that when we go to work with it as an applique, it's one applique. So I'm going to select those letters, then I'm going to right click on them, and I'm going to choose the word combine. And what that will do is make that artwork one artwork. So when I do that, the other way you can do it is up here. The combine tool is right here on the toolbar. So that's the other way. You can select it and then click up there, whichever you prefer. Okay. Now when I go over here to my sequence view and I open up the second color, which is the name, look, there's only one artwork. So now it's just one artwork. Okay. Now, when I need to make an SVG or an FCM cutting file, I always, so see, this is still artwork. And what that is artwork that you're going to export to a USB stick or whatever to put into your Scan and Cut or your Silhouette Cameo or your Cricut or whatever. So I need to keep an artwork in this design in order to do that. What is the difference between combine and group? Okay, group, it's not one design. It's just grouped the 4 or 5 designs together. Combine actually makes it one piece. Is that explain it well enough, Denise? Because like if I were to group that, let me show you. Let me undo here. So like if I grouped all of those things and just went group, okay, now it just says group. But if you look under the group, they're still all individual. It's just like put them together so that you can move them around together, but they're not one single entity. Okay, so now if I go in there, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select all those pieces and I'm going to go to combine. Now I look under the second color and it's just one artwork. So that's what combine does. It makes it one entity together. Okay. So since this is going to have that SVG file that I'm going to produce, I need to keep an artwork in this design because that's how you can export it into that format. So what I do then is I take this artwork, because I'm going to make this into something else, but I need to still have an artwork. So I'm just going to select that artwork and I'm going to copy it up here at the top. And then I'm going to paste it. And right now then it's under color number 2. Okay, so now we have 2 artworks and it's the same thing on top of each other. But I'm going to go ahead, the second one, I'm going to make it color number 3. And that's the one we're going to work with. So I'm going to right click on color number 3 at the bottom. And now I've got a red artwork Janice and a green artwork Janice. Okay. So I'm going to leave that red one there. And it will not sew because remember that is not stitches. It's just an artwork. It's just a piece of, it's like a piece of a picture. It's a picture there. Okay. But we need that there so that we can export it so that we can use it in our cutting machine. Okay. So now I'm ready to make these letters, my Janice, into an applique. So I have the green Janice selected, which is the one I pasted. And I'm going to right click up here and then I'm going to convert to applique. So now I have this lovely satin stitch around all my letters. So see how easy that was? We had true type font. It was an artwork. We copied it, adjusted it and everything the way we wanted. And remember that red artwork that it's still there is going to be our cut file. And we didn't change anything. You don't want to change anything after you make your copy. It needs to be exactly the same. Okay? So we have it appliqued. So now I want to do some stuff to my applique. I would like my satin stitch to be 3.5. I wanted a satin stitch. There's other options, of course. You can do the tackle twill, the E-stitch, the motif, the symbol. There's different applique options. I'm just going to leave it satin. I'm going to use the width of 3.5 millimeters. I like that. And the length, I'm going to go down to 2.5 millimeters. In other words, that's the placement line and tack down line are going to be shorter stitches. I wanted to do, in this case, since it's got a satin stitch, I do want it to have a placement line so that I know where to lay my fabric down. Or in this case, if I've cut it out, I lay my fabric down in the placement line. I also wanted to have a tack down line. And the reason, normally when I do pre-cut applique, I leave the tack down line off because I don't need it. Because I cut my fabric with a heat and bond on the back and it adheres to the fabric. However, you might need to cut this in the hoop. So let's just go ahead and leave the tack down line in there. Because then if you do need to trim this in the hoop, trim your letters if you don't have a cutting machine, then that tack down line's there. So we'll leave it in. And then if you are cutting your letters, you can leave that's what my other note was. If you're cutting your letters, you can leave the tack down off. And I often do when I choose the option of E-stitch, which is like the blanket stitch. I only use a placement line and then the E-stitch. I don't use the tack down line because you don't want to see that in your design. But in this case, we're going to leave it on because some of you may need to use the tack down and then trim against the tack down line. Okay, so let me turn my page. Now, this particular design also has holes. So in other words, that means that there's an E, a center of the E, and there's a center of the A. So we do need to adjust the holes. Because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do an inset for the satin stitch, and I need to adjust the holes so that it's going the right direction. Otherwise the satin stitch will go outward instead of inward like I want it. So you do need to click this little thing, adjust holes. So like when you're doing names and stuff, you often need that because a lot of the letters have an inside hole in them. Okay, so I've got adjust holes also checked. Then I want to go up and I'm going to change my inset. So like the inset defaults at 50%, so that means 50% of the satin stitch is off the fabric and 50% is on the fabric. So I like more of my satin stitch to be on the fabric so that it covers well and the fabric does not come off. So I normally use 60 to 70%. Now these letters are, let's try 60 first. These letters are sort of slim, so we may need to use 60. I believe I used 60 on my sample. So let's click apply and see how that looks. And what it did, you probably didn't even hardly see it. It just barely moved the satin stitch inward a little bit. So let's try 70%. And then I saw it move in just a little bit more. But I'm also noticing now that my letters are going to be, there's not going to be much space between the satin stitches and the fabric. You know, there's not going to be much fabric showing. So I did use 60% for this, and that was enough. It was plenty enough to cover well. So I'm going to go back to 60% for the inset and click apply again. Okay, so now I've got all the settings I want for my satin stitch. All right, so wasn't that easy to make that design? I mean, we're basically done. I've got a couple more little things to do, and then we would be ready to sew. Okay, so we've got the satin stitches where we want it and everything. I think I'm going to, at this point, this outline, I don't really need it anymore, so that really, it's not going to sew anyway, but I really don't need it anymore. I want to make sure my letters, let's go both of these letters here in a second. I'm going to select both my letters. I'm just going to make sure everything is centered properly. Looks good. Okay. I did center origin just to make sure. And then, whoops, second here, sorry. To fit. And I'm going to go ahead and just select the first rectangle that we made just as a guide. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So I just selected it. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard because we don't really need that anymore. It wouldn't have sewn, but it was just something else on the screen we don't really need. Okay. Now, at this point, I have my, my red artwork, which is my name, and then I have my green applique. So it's going to have placement line, a tack down line, and then the cover satin stitch. Okay. So I want to make my SVG or FCM file now. So to do this, remember we needed to have that artwork. So I'm going to select the red artwork. And I'm going to create my SVG or FCM. I'm going to do an FCM because that's what my cutting machine, my Scan and Cut, uses. It will also read SVG files. But I find that SVG files sometimes, size-wise, in the Scan and Cut can be a little off. So I usually use FCM because that is the native format for my Scan and Cut. Okay, so I have that selected, my artwork selected. You don't actually have to select it. It's the only artwork in there, so that's the one it'll do. I'm going to go to File. And I do this with a lot of stuff. This is the way I make my cutting files. So File, and then I'm going to go down to where it says Export Artwork, because that's the only artwork that's in there. So I'm going to export artwork. And then I'm going to choose which file I want, which format I want. So down here, it's on SVG right now, and I don't want that SVG. I would like it to be FCM, which is my Scan and Cut. They also give you a couple of other options here. Some of these are all different cutting files. There's a DXF, which is common cutting file, and some of these are the like AI, which is Adobe Illustrator. That's a file for that. So you can choose several. DXF, FCM, and SVG are the three common cutting files. So I'm just going to use FCM. And I'm going to call it Janice Cut File. I'm just going to name it as a cut file, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on my desktop. Okay, I'll just put it on my desktop. That is the file now that I can cut those letters out with my Scan and Cut. It's the same size as my applique. Everything's exactly the same. I'm just going to leave it in the design. It will not sew. It's just there as an artwork, but then I just exported it. So now I have an FCM file for my scan and cut. So it wasn't that easy. File, export artwork. Okay, this will be your cut file for the scan and cut or other electronic cutter. All right, so then I'm going to, at this point, I'm ready to sew. So all I have to do at this point is I need to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save it first always as a C2S. And that is my native format, so I can go back and change things or fix things and get into things so I can work with it. So I'm just going to call it Janice, and I'm going to put it on my desktop. Okay, now I'm ready to make it. Jan, if you go watch my Jan asked, how do you make an embroidery file into a cut file? Okay, what I do, I have 2 videos on cutting fabric with the scan and cut on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube channel and look under scan and cut, there's 2 fabric cutting videos, and I show you in the first one how to do that. You can use the machine to create the cut file, or you can use the PES file in the scan and cut directly. So I show you those 2 ways. So if you go watch those videos, it'll show you. It's in the first fabric cutting video that I do that. So if you already have a embroidery file and you need to make it into a cutting file, I usually use the sewing machine just because it's really fast. Okay, so yeah, just go ahead and watch that. Okay, so now, I mean, I've got my C2S, but you know, that won't read in our machine, so now we need to go to File, Save As, and this time I'm going to save it as a PES file, version 9, or whatever, if you have another machine. I think most of you have brother machines that are here. Some of you, there's a couple people that may not. And then I'm just going to call it Janice as a PES. And save that on my desktop. Okay, I'm going to show you the difference now. So like when I'm looking at the C2S file right here on my screen, you know, when you see the applique right here, it just says applique. All right, so when you save that then as a PES file, so let's go open the PES file we just created. And is this the PES file? Here's the PES file. Okay, when I go open that PES file that I just created, now when I go in and look at it, it gave me different colors here, see? So here is the placement line, oops, and then the second color is the tack down line, and the third color is the satin stitch. So it opened up those things that we did all the little check marks in our box. It opened it up into 3 separate entities, 3 separate stops, so that the machine would stop in between. Okay, so that's the difference. When you save it as a PES, it changes it like that. And like if I go back here, there's only 2. This is the artwork and this is the applique, but when I go to my PES, it's 3 stitch files. Okay, so what I did with mine, I left the tack down line in mine, and so what I did is I just used my placement line. So I sewed out the placement line, and then I skipped the second step, which is the tack down line, because I had pre-cut my Janice, and then I put it into the placement lines, used my iron and tacked it down, and then I just skipped to the third and did the satin stitching. Okay, but I thought it'd be good to leave it in there for those of you who do not have a cutting machine. So if you need to trim, that's fine. I trim a lot, but stuff like this, I often will cut it out. Okay, so let's go back and look at the pillow again. So here's the pillow, and you can see that I have the satin stitches, and they're not too close. You can see the fabric nicely, and that was the 60% inset. And I did these pre-cut letters. Now the other document that's up there on Dropbox then is the pattern for the pillow. It's very simple. Tells you how to trim the inside piece. I believe the inside piece, let me find my trimming instructions here. When you get ready to do, you cut it 11 by 15, but when you go to, and this is done in a 6 by 10 hoop, by the way. When you square up your center panel, it's going to square up to 8.5 by 12.5. Okay. And then when you're going to make the little rectangles are 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles that go around the outside edge. And then the backing is one of those little envelope backs. It's very simple. I did put in on the underneath the white fabric there is a piece of Shapeflex, so that it didn't, so it gave the center of my pillow more body. And I used tearaway stabilizer to stitch it, but I stitched it in a 6 by 10 hoop. Okay, so that is how you make a name pillow, a personalized name pillow with your true type fonts. Go wild with these. They're fun because you can do all the different, there's so many different fonts, and if you have grandchildren, they need to have a pillow on their bed, right, with their name on it. And you can do all kinds of cool fonts with it. You can stretch them and make them look even more different. But I just thought this was a cute project. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I hadn't had a chance to do it. Do you really need the colored fabric behind the name? I like applique, so in my case, yes. You don't have to. You can just do the satin stitches around the outside, and it would still give a name. I just like applique, Jan. So yeah, you can do it the other way if you want to. It would be just fine. Do you have a PDF file for this video? Carolyn, I do not have the instructions for digitizing it. I just have the video. I have the instructions for making the pillow. There's a PDF file of the how to make the pillow, because I'm not going through that. You have the video for the digitizing part. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. Next month we're not gonna have class on Labor Day weekend, the first weekend like we normally do, first Sunday in September. The fabric behind the name panel. Well, that's the center of the pillow. So I'm still not quite understanding your question, Jan. I mean, the fabric behind the name pillow, the name panel. Well, all there is just, there's a piece of fabric in the middle that you do the applique on, and then there's the little squares around the outside edge. I put Shapeflex on the back of that panel to give it body. Okay, so the first Sunday in September is actually Labor Day weekend. So we're not going to have class that Sunday, but we'll have a software class on the 12th then. So that'll be the software class, and that's when we're going to do the SVG. We're going to make an embroidery design out of an SVG file to bring it into your software and make a design out of it. Okay, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but that's what I want to do. All right, so we'll do that on the 12th of September. And then we'll have embroidery for the next 2 weeks. Okay, so are there any questions? Hopefully this makes sense to everybody. And go get your files, and then your font is also in that file. And install your font. Okay? So this was a fun project. I enjoyed doing it. I have my pillow at the store, so if some of you are around, you can stop by the store and see the pillow. So, okay. So, like I said, next month it'll be a week late. It'll be the week after Labor Day, and we'll do something with SVG files that day. Okay? All right. So thanks everybody, and I will be seeing you soon, I'm sure. So have a good week. And I'll see you next week on Sew Along with Jan. So next week will be the purse. We're going to be making our big clasp tote, that bobbled clasp tote is what they call it. Carry-all tote. There we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.